And we are back. Thank you so much for staying with us. And in case you're just joining us, welcome to Kenya's Gold, where today we are focusing on all matters camel farming in Kenya. As earlier promised, we will be speaking to an expert very shortly. He's already in our studios, ready to talk to us a lot more about the industry that is camel farming. But before we get into that, let us have a look at the camel population in different parts of the world, not just in Kenya alone. Now, remember last week we learned that our population as of 2019, which was when the last animal census was conducted, was at 4.7 million. Now, if we move to the next slide, before this particular slide, we want to look at the world population first, and then we're going to break it down to the countries. Now, the total population of camels in the world, and this is according to FAO statistics, as of 2019, was at 37,509,691. Now, this is the global population of camel. If we break it down to what is there in Africa, we stand at 32,671,288. Now, coming down to the countries, we have Somalia at 7,243,792. Sudan follows closely at 4,895,000, and we have Kenya at 4,721,900. Now, if we move to Ethiopia, we are at 1,281,468. Kindly, let's move to the next slide. And we have Mali at 1,241,093. Eritrea is at 388,152. And finally, Djibouti at 70,894. Now, this gives you an overview of the number of camels that we do have globally and in different parts of the world. Now, right about now, we do want to talk to our guest who is very present. Thank you so very much for making time to be with us today. I know the traffic was crazy today, yes, but you made it on time. We are joined by Dr. Diba Dida Wako, who is a veterinary doctor and also a camel specialist. Thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you, Gina.
Now, looking at those figures, we're looking at the number of camels in different parts of the world, different countries. We can see Kenya is doing well, 4.7, but we have other countries that have more. However, we are leading when it comes to the production of milk. Someone might sit down and think, well, the countries that have more camels should be producing more milk than us. What gives us an edge to a point where, as much as we're not the ones leading in the number of camels, we still are the ones producing the most number of camel milk?
Thank you, Ngina. You are right. That's a question worth asking. The figures are actually, right now, the population is approached 42 million as we speak today. And the figures, Chad is even ahead of Somalia at 10 million. So we have countries that are way ahead of us, Chad and Somalia.
Right.
But Somalia, in terms of milk production, is not far from us. We are very close to each other. But straight to your question, there are a number of factors, and one would consider would be breed, because different breeds of camels produce different amounts of milk. That could be one factor.
Right.
And so in Kenya, we have one of the breeds that produces good milk, and that's the Somali breed.
Right.
Because breeds in Kenya are given according to different tribes that keep them.
Right.
But also there could be about marketing of milk itself, because there are a lot of probably people who are producing good amount of milk, but probably consuming or maybe not getting to organized markets. Recently, Kenya is becoming, in terms of camel milk production in the recent years, it's becoming a bit more organized. Camel milk recognized more, and you would even find it on the shelves of supermarkets.
Right.
And also, you know, a lot of nutritional values and other values of camels are becoming popular increasingly these days.
Right. Right. How is our consumption like? We know we are producing a lot of this camel milk, but when it comes to consuming it back at home, how is it currently, and also how has it changed over the years?
The communities that keep camel, you know, historically, camel diet, I mean milk in general, for pastoralists, constitutes about 60% of their diet. I grew up in northern Kenya in Marsabit County, and I looked after animals for about 8 years before I went to school. And we could go for months without seeing any solid food but just milk. So milk consumption in the rural areas is still very high, particularly areas where they are not really very much concerned with taking the milk to the market, because if you are deep interior, consider a place like Marsabit, if you are deep into, you know, North Horr sub-county, for example, largely the milk you produce will just consume. Because the milk production and camel milk production in Kenya is like in two different, let's say, ways.
Right.
There are pastoralists who have become camel dairies, actually, camel dairy farmers. They are mostly congregating closer to the market, around peri-urban areas. Right. Isiolo, for example, is one of those, Garissa, Wajir, and even southern rangelands.
Right.
And so these ones are focused so much on taking the milk to the market. But the ones that are deep interior, they are nomadic life, and where, because camel has a lot of other values, where they look at camel as wealth and as something that culturally very important in their lives, probably milk consumption milk is produced largely for consumption at home, as I say.
Right.
Yeah.
And we understand, like you said, you grew up taking care of animals, so you've drunk milk for very many years.
Yes.
We have those communities where we're not coming from pastoral communities,
Yeah.
but we understand the benefits that are there in camel milk. Is it about time we created awareness for these other communities so that we can also start consuming camel milk, and maybe that can improve the market of camel milk?
Most definitely.
Are we doing that already?
We are not doing as much as we would have liked.
Why? Why?
I would say, I would say first of all, you see, it takes time to, you know, to take to adapt to something that you are not used to.
Right.
And most of the communities in Kenya, you know, camel milk comes from camel. So you have to first of all be familiar with the camel for you to like camel milk and take camel milk first, even before you test it. And so many communities in Kenya have not known the camel itself and the value of camel milk. But over the years, and through efforts of maybe different actors, groups, pastoral associations, and even you as media, that you've helped in highlighting the values of camel milk, and increasingly, even globally, the scientists, scientific community is extremely interested in camel milk. There are so many you know, anecdotal evidence, and even some established publications of research that have gone into it, and they are increasingly, people are getting access to internet, people are increasingly getting information about camel milk and its value. And so it is coming, and people every day it's improving, that people are getting to know. But I think as a lover of camel, as a man who knows what camel could be, because camel is not what it's supposed to be for us, because we are so much behind. We are behind in breeding, we are behind in disease control, we are behind in creating awareness and marketing camel milk. And so for that reason, I believe we have a huge task ahead of us.
Right.
We are yet to be where we are supposed to be in terms of camel milk.
Right. Now, when reading different reports about some of the challenges that are facing camels in the arid and semi-arid areas, you'll find, for example, I was reading a report from Samburu district, and you'll find one of the things they talk about is predators. All right. We also have drought and camel diseases. I want you to expound for us in depth when you talk about predators. What exactly are we saying when you talk about animal drought? How devastating has that been for camels in those regions? And also, what camel diseases are we talking about in this particular case?
I would start with camel diseases.
Okay. All
these 3 points you've raised are very important points. But if you look at camel globally, 80%, nearly 84% of camel population today, as we speak today, is in Africa.
You're right.
That's the population. The rest are largely just in Asia. And so globally, in fact, if you even reduce down to the top 10 countries in the world, top 10 countries in the world in camel population own over 80% of camels, and 8 of those countries are here in Africa. Unfortunately, we have lagged behind in terms of research in camel diseases. Up to today, I'm a veterinarian. I graduated from the University of Nairobi with very little knowledge in camel diseases as a veterinarian. Today I consider myself as somebody who knows a thing or two about camel diseases, and I learned largely after leaving veterinary school, mostly postgraduate and learning from the pastoralists. A lot of diseases are still unidentified. Every year, if you look at search today, you will find, you count back up to maybe 10 years, every year we have something about unknown camel diseases, sudden death, mysterious diseases of camels. We have not identified camel diseases, and what we've not identified in terms of what causes, like a disease, you have to know what causes that disease for you to treat it. So pastoralists are left to just try this and that, and we are not really controlling camel diseases as it should be. And drought, of course, is a problem for everyone. But if you compare livestock species that we own, less for camel, because they are really highly adapted to this harsh environment. But they are not totally immune. We lost a number of them in the last drought that was unprecedented. But they are quite hardy in terms of surviving in this harsh condition. So I will rank diseases first, then drought next, and predators could be a problem, especially camels are very curious animals. When it's lying down, and it can lie down for long. And our community actually have a saying around that. It can sit and just sit, actually literally sit for long. And when anything passes by, it will investigate by sniffing. So hyenas...
When you say sit for long, how long is long? Make us understand.
Hours. Hours. And when they get sick, for example, camels can lie down for a week. And if that happens to your Frisian cow today, in 48 hours, even in 24 hours, the chances of them standing again is it diminishes by hour. But for camel, they can sit there, lie there for days on end, and feel okay to walk away. But basically, when I raised the question of them lying down for long, when any animal, anything passes by, to investigate here and there, and these hyenas and these other animals would grab, and that could also be a problem. But by far, the biggest problem in camel production that we have in this region is disease.
The diseases. Now that has brought up something very interesting, because you said you graduated, but a lot of the things that you've learned about camel, you've learned post-school. So does that mean we need to put more effort also in our learning institutions? Because it seems like you could be there studying agriculture, but you'll come out still not fully equipped with what you need to know. And then also, again, something else that comes up is when we are dealing with diseases that we do not know, how then do we work out an immunization schedule? Do we have like compulsory immunization that camels need to go through, like the way we have with our chicken and the way we have with our cows? How do we work around that?
So I'll start with the first question. The first question is the question of graduating with little knowledge and gaining much outside here. I mean, for most career, or most profession where people have to do things hands-on, a lot of things are learned outside anyway. But for camel, what made it very difficult is that the curriculum that we went through did not focus much on camel. Things have since changed a lot now. And I hear there are quite a number of changes at the university, and things are happening now. But it's not just at the university. It's a global problem. Globally, we know very little about camel. Actually, so if globally the scientific community, because this is science, knows very little about camel, then the university I went to, and I went to 3 universities, cannot create their own knowledge of camel and teach you instantly. Of course, over time, they have to do research in it. They have to improve. But as you said, in agriculture, the curriculum needs to be very careful. The people who develop these curriculums need to be very careful to make sure that it is adapted to our situation.
Right.
Make sure that we prioritize, let's say, for example, in this scenario, we prioritize animals that are very important to us.
Right.
You know? And so that is one. The second thing, your second question was on immunization.
Right.
So on immunization, you cannot immunize what you don't know the cause of.
Right.
So it's like shooting in the dark. That's what we do most of the time. There's one disease I know that there is an existing vaccine for, that's camel pox. But most of these other diseases, since we've not even identified what causes them, many of them, what caused them, then we do not know how to
immunize them.
We do not know what to immunize for.
Right. So that means we need to put a lot more effort into research institutions, researching the camel in particular.
Research. Right now, I run a regional livestock program, if you may allow me to say so.
Sure.
And I work for Mexico as a regional livestock program director. And so in this program, which is funded by Swiss government and now joined by French, we are focusing on, we are advocating every day. We are advocating for an establishment of Camel Center of Excellence every day, not just us, but together with like-minded people in this space. And an ideal situation is to have a center that works day and night to research these camel diseases and camel production problem, because there are also other production problems, in order to make sure that we get to the bottom of this disease issue. Production is another problem, because for cattle, for example, right now, if you want to breed, you just need to get artificial insemination, and you inseminate hundreds of your animals, and there in a year, in 9 months, you have your calf. For camel today, we don't have functioning artificial insemination in any African country. Of course, there are some places that they are doing now. It's difficult, it's not easy, but this is something we need to get to, because we can't just do easy stuff. We have to do tough things as well.
Right. Yeah. Great. So I want us to talk about the breeds. Like you mentioned, one of the things that gives us an edge when it comes to the reason as to why we do have the highest milk producing production in the world, being here in Kenya, is you mentioned the breeds. But before we get to that, most of the time when you talk about camels, we'll say for transportation, for meat, for milk and fur. But when you travel to the coast, you'll see by the beach, people, you know, are given rides by tourists, enjoy the camel rides. Should we also say that, you know, camels contribute to the tourism sector to some extent? Because that's one of the joys for the people who go down to the coast and stuff like that.
Yes, a lot, a lot. First of all, in terms of breeds, as I said, we have 3 distinct local breeds that we have. We have the Somali breed, which is a bit larger than, which is much larger than the rest, and you can just tell by, you know, if you compare them by the size. We have Gabra and Serendile, which is one common breed, and we have the Turkana, which is a much smaller, agile, and even can climb mountains or hills.
Really?
Yes. But as you said, yes, indeed, camel values go much more or beyond milk production and meat production. Tourism is a huge thing. We even have a camel ride event that occurs, I don't know at what frequency, in somewhere in Samburu, and I have seen this. And we have camel communities that cannot, you know, even get married without having a camel. Like that's part of the dowry? Yes. Really? And it's mandatory. And how many do you have to bring? The Gabra community, for example. I don't know the total number, but for one thing I am sure about, and there are more than one, and one thing I am sure about, you can't have your bride without that. Camel. And there are many other values. These guys, you know, they are the beast of burden, as they say. They carry for us huge loads. They carry kids. They are very gentle. You know, and those houses you've seen that made of, you know, branches and you know, especially we'll see when we see a camel keeping community in northern Kenya. kids kept in there, and they even believe there are some cultural beliefs around sick people carried on camel as an ambulance.
Oh, really?
That have the therapeutic effect. But of course, that's not something that has been proven.
Right.
But it is something that the keepers of camel believe. Camel is much more than just a livestock.
Right.
It's for the people who own it and believe in all these values that they give them.
Right.
Yeah.
Talk to us about the single hump and those with the double hump. Right.
94% of camel population in the world is single hump, the dromedarius, the dromedary camel. Actually, in terms of species, there are three. There's the dromedary camel, which is the single hump, the bacterian, and another one which is a form of bacterian but is wild. Recently, they used to think that these two, the bacterian and the feral one, the wild one, they used to think that they were just they had one common origin, but recently they have been classified as distinct species, and the wild one is actually endangered. It's less than 1,000 or so left in the world, but 94% of the camel population in the world is our camel, the Arabian camel, which is also called the dromedary, single hump.
So where do we find the wild ones? Which parts of the world can you commonly find them?
Mostly in Asia.
Right.
Mongolia is one of them, and countries around there. It's mostly in Asia, and even the wild one is just not mostly, it's basically in Asia.
Did you say it's an endangered species?
The wild one.
Why?
They have been in the wild, and over the years they have died out, and so it's a very small number of them left. But in terms of look, they look exactly. I mean, unless you are an expert, you look closely. They look like the bacterian, the two-humped camel. Yeah.
Let's talk about value addition when it comes to the value addition of animal produce. What are the other products that we can get from camel milk? What can you value add it into?
Actually, a lot is happening right now.
Okay.
In form of adding, first of all, let me say, camel milk is naturally, has a natural value added to them because it's unlike any other milk of domestic animals that we keep. And so in terms of value, in terms of nutritional value, like for example, the kind of, the amount of vitamin C in any milk, it has the highest vitamin C. It has high levels of iron and many other nutritive value. That's one. But in terms of value that we add as human beings, as keepers of camel, or as sellers of camel, I have seen camel chocolate.
Camel chocolate.
I've seen camel yogurt, fantastic yogurt. And it's thin. It's not thick.
All right.
And it's really nice when you drink it. We have camel soap. I have one at home right now as we speak. Yes.
So is it like a skincare thing? You know the way women, when we hear products like soap, you're like, does it make my skin smoother?
You better try. I don't know the company that produces it, but recently I came across at the place of work through my colleague, a serious camel keeper. It's called Pia Simke himself. And I took it from him. I've not even used it. It's at home right now.
Okay.
And then also camel powder right now. KCC is producing camel powder, right? I don't know if you've seen. So camel milk powder. So there are many value-added products that are coming out of camel, be it adding value to the milk itself to make it, different form of milk, or other products, as I mentioned.
Are we making butter?
And of course, traditionally, I'm not sure about that. About butter, I'm not very sure. Yes.
Great. Now, there's always that warning that you're given if you've not drunk camel milk before. Unawoniwa, if you drink it, you might get a running stomach. Is it true?
By the way, I've seen people complain of this. I've seen people saying this, but it is actually a paradox.
It's not true?
No, I don't know. You see, only the shoe wearer knows where it pinches. I'm not in that group.
Yeah.
But there's one thing I know for a fact. Camel milk has low lactose. Lower lactose than far much lower than what we have in cattle milk, for example.
Right.
And so lactose intolerant people
Right.
are actually advised to take camel milk because they tolerate camel milk much more than
They
others.
tolerate
So I think there could be some myth here and there. There could be just people who are not used to milk in general, but camel milk in that sense should actually be tolerated more than the other milk.
So you're confirming it's safe for those who are lactose intolerant?
That is a fact that has been established. It has low lactose. It has many other things that are still being studied. Even for the case of diabetes, they say it has a protein that lowers sugar in milk, I mean in the body. And so there are all sorts of research going on. There are things that I can't say for a fact, but there are some that I have already read about and seen, and lactose intolerance is one of those.
Right. So for the milk
lactose tolerance, rather.
All right.
Yeah.
So for the milk that we are producing currently, are we consuming all of it locally, or are we exporting some of this milk?
We don't have proper organized exportation happening at the moment. We are not even, camel milk is very expensive. Right now, you go to supermarket, I buy usually a half a liter at 180 shillings. So 1 liter of pasteurized milk goes for around 360. Even at the farm gate price, it's much more expensive than cattle milk, for example.
Right.
But in terms of exportation, there are people who are already doing a few. I've come across a few individuals who are exporting in small quantities, either milk powder or in form of ultra heat treatment, and mostly I can't say we have an organized exportation happening at the moment, but there are those people. I have interacted with a few private sector actors in my line of work, and there are people who are exporting a few, I mean a small amount here and there.
So if we were to organize that structure, the exportation structure, do we have enough to supply and meet the demand of the local market and export as well?
I think the priority, first of all, is to meet the local demand.
Right.
And even stabilize the price, for example. Okay. And have the technology, make it cheaper to increase shelf life, so that the price at the end on the shelf is not too expensive. But much more than that, increase awareness in terms of campaign for the entire Kenyan community to accept camel milk. Right. Because currently it's largely consumed by people with pastoral background, and they are used to keeping camel, or maybe a few others who have come to know its medicinal or nutritive value that they attribute to them and they start taking. But majority of Kenyans still don't know what camel milk is. And so we really need to step up, first of all, local campaign in terms of marketing, and then talk of export market.
Great. Yeah. Thank you so much for that. Something that is coming out very clearly from this conversation is we need to create as much sensitization and awareness so that even those communities that are not entirely pastoral communities can appreciate camel milk and consume camel milk as well. Now we are taking another break, but do not go anywhere, because when we come back, we will be continuing with a conversation with Dr. Diba Didawako, who is a vet and also a camel specialist. Do stick around for that and more.